for a lot of schizoid individuals, we have a tendency not to be very easily emotionally impacted by other people, and this can be a source of frustration for other people, because impacting other people emotionally is a major source of influence and power within society. A lot of people, they work out other people's emotional patterns and they use it against them. So, basically it's part of learning like what makes other people tick. And when people can't read us emotionally, and because we don't express our emotions easily, our true emotions, people can't truly really get a handle on who we are and how to emotionally manipulate us for their own purposes. And this can be very frustrating because really a lot of people want other people to be emotionally affected by what they do for the reasons of manipulation, and also for the reason of feeling like important. When one person has a lot of emotions for another person and expresses that, it can make the other person feel important, and it's part of wanting to feel needed. And I think that with us, we can make other people feel like they're not needed, and this goes back to the fact that really to show someone that they're needed, it usually goes hand in hand with having a strong emotional connection or strong emotional responses to that person. So in terms of society, it's quite unusual to be someone who is not emotionally impacted by others. I think the fact that we don't have the emotional attachment to people and objects in the external world means that a lot of our motivation to exploit and use other people is diminished. And so a lot of things that other people find just like normal, like just aren't really normal for us. Also, there seems to be some sort of some sort of unspoken sort of can't think of the word for it now, but there's an expectation that you're supposed to emotionally respond in a certain way in a certain situation, and a lot of people are on the same page with that. So in some situations where we're expected to have an emotional response, we don't have them, and that's something that sets us apart from the rest of the group. And also I think it can make people feel unconfident when they're not able to predict when you emotionally respond, whereas with a lot of other people, their emotional responses are quite predictable. And that's definitely something that sets us apart in society. I would say that for a lot of schizoid individuals, emotions don't seem to be really an important form of currency for us. And mainly that's because we don't use emotions to get our needs met with other people. So therefore, a lot of the time, it doesn't really seem important to know what we're feeling or to express what we're feeling, because we don't really expect to get any sort of positive return from it. There are ways that we can get our emotional needs met by ourselves, like with fantasy or psychological engaging in like a lot of like idea generation, or this isn't really a realm that I'm very up on. I don't really personally have much emotional insight. But I do know that there are some schizoid individuals that have a fairly rich inner emotional world, that they will fulfill their emotional needs through fantasy and using imaginary tactics. I think that with schizoid individuals, we can be very intense. And I think it's because, like, even if we don't connect with our emotions or express them, there is still emotional activity taking place on some level. A lot of us can feel in the dark about this, especially if we have alexithymia, which is difficulty connecting with, reading and expressing our emotions. And to me, it's like there can be like an energy, like a stored up energy that is in many ways nondescript. Like, for example, it cannot be described, explained. It's just very much a dark, sort of, just inexplicable sort of energy. And because we hold everything inside, it can create like a feeling of inner tension. And for that reason, we can be quite intense. And the intensity isn't necessarily going to show on the surface. And that's because we've developed barriers over time to hold everything inside so that other people can't get a read on us. I think that when we have the flat effect and we lack emotional expression, like in our face, it is a form of protection, because when other people can read your emotions, it gives them a lot of information, and it's information that they could potentially use against us, along with the fact that we don't tend to find very much value in expressing our emotions. It means that we just seem to be a lot better off by not sharing that with people. I would say that when we mask, that we can seem that we're showing a lot of emotions, but I would say that these emotions don't run don't run very deep, and they're not necessarily like very personal to us. They're more situationally generated in order to create sort of the image of being closer to other people than we are, so that we don't seem like we're so distant, or we don't seem like we're emotionally disconnected from what's going on, so that people won't be so alerted to our differences. I think that people tend to be quite intuitive, so I do think that people can sometimes see through that. And we also have limited energy for it, so it's not something that we're able to do for like long periods of time. And this is part of the reason why we need to actually physically separate ourselves from people and be in a space where we can be comfortable enough to just relax and not feel like we have to put on a front or we have to respond to other people in order to seem normal.